Hello everyone, Mighty Benaya here, and I'm going to take a few minutes. I'm not going to go into any of my games, but I'm going to take a few minutes to talk to you a little bit about the newspaper and Goldmark. This has come up within a game that I've been in recently, and I wanted to address it in general and take a look at what the rules actually are so that we can all A, support Bytro in making a game that we enjoy, and also make sure that we are in the right whenever we post something in the newspaper. So want to go through what is acceptable and what's not, what everything says. But before I do any of that, there's a couple of housekeeping things that I want to say before anything else. First of all, I am not a lawyer, and this is not legal advice. I am an average Joe who takes time to read things and do a little bit of research. I do have a little bit of a journalism background. It's not extensive. I've never been a journalist, but that's where a lot of that comes from, is wanting to research and making sure that I am presenting accurate information instead of just going half-cocked and not sure what's going on and then spilling information because I can. I've taken time to research. I'm going to show you what I have found in as much as I can. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me, and I'll try to help clarify. Second thing that I want to specifically note before we go into any further detail. It is my understanding, and I could be wrong on this, but it's my understanding that the mod team for Bytro is not in charge of creating or maintaining the rules that are laid forth. They are only in charge of implementing the rules that they are given to work with. So I will have a call to action for the mod team. However, changing the rules isn't something that they can do, and addressing it with them isn't impactful at all. Saying that a rule is not fair is not impactful at all if you are talking to a mod, because they can't make changes. That is, in effect, what you're doing is you're complaining to a police officer that tax code isn't fair. There's nothing that they can do about it, and it's just going to get everyone irritated. That being said, again, I am going to do a call to action for 3 groups of people later on in the video, so stick with me. Let's talk a little bit about Goldmark. Goldmark is the business model for Bytro. So I watch ads in order to gain my Goldmark. As you can see, I've got 200,000 that I've yet to spend, that I've been banking up. I think that the premium service is much more valuable than Goldmark to me personally, because I use it all the time. I love the premium service. I recommend watching the ads to get the premium service. Goldmark is part of the game because that is how Bytro makes its money. And I don't want Bytro to not make money because I want to continue playing the game. That being said, and I'm going to go into my personal experience here a little bit, it is incredibly frustrating when I'm playing a game, I'm investing time, and another individual invests money, and they're investing enough money that it is making my gameplay and the gameplay of those around me both untenable and unenjoyable, and it's tempts us to just completely leave the game. So there is a reasonable frustration. We all want Bytro to continue doing business, but there is a reasonable frustration out there. And what I have done in the past, because I had not looked through the terms of service, was whenever I saw someone who was getting way ahead because of spending Goldmarks, whether they were earned via map wins, watching ads, or purchased, I call it out and say, hey, we need to be careful because this person is going to be running away with the game. The same way that you would do it if somebody was taking a lot of provinces and they were getting really lucky. It's not necessarily specifically about the Goldmark, but because it is a part of the game, I have in the past called out, hey, we need to watch out for this person. In recent games, I have seen moderators say that that is against the terms of service, that calling out Goldmark use and Goldmark users is against terms of service. And I didn't know that. I was shocked. And I was a little bit defensive because of, prior history, and it doesn't make sense to me, other than the fact that they want to protect the use, the ability to use Goldmark. So I decided to read the terms of service. And I'm going to go over to the terms of service here in a second. But before we go, actually, let's go ahead and go to the terms of service. So these are the terms of service. And I read through all of this, and it does not say anything about the newspaper and Goldmarks specifically. So technically speaking, talking about Goldmark use in the newspaper is not against terms of service. However, it is against the game rules, and violating the game rules is against terms of service. So what the mods are doing is they are using shorthand. I think that it's a little bit lazy to use shorthand here because it can lead to some confusion. However, I understand why they're doing it. So they are specifically referencing Article 1.4, also Article 13.4 and 8.1, I believe. I will have to go back through my notes, but we're just going to read Article 1.4 here. Article 1.4 says the game rules of the game are available on the game's website. Upon participating in the game, the participant accepts the rules of the game and the conditions for participation as binding. Later on, it says if you don't follow the rules of the game, we can take action to ensure that you follow the rules or are evicted from the match. So this part is what the mods are saying is violated when we post information about Goldmark. But it's not specifically referenced in the terms of service. It is referenced in the game rules. Okay, well, what are the game rules? So there's two sets. There is the general game rules. They do not allow account pushing, wolf packing, or capital farming. None of these reference the newspaper. The one that will be referenced the most is wolf packing. So wolf packing can be defined by the following events. If a player or group of players follows another player around the game with the purpose of harming his gaming experience due to personal motivations, that's vague, will be considered wolf packing, and they can be removed from the game round immediately. So theoretically, if somebody is targeting a gold marker and following them from game to game and making their life miserable, that's wolf packing. But it has less to do with gold mark usage and more to do with actions that are following a personal vendetta, no matter what that vendetta is. Again, a little bit vague and doesn't really put a point on it. And this is all that I had found. And I had to get with some of the mods to figure out where this rule was, because I wasn't finding it anywhere. And this is a different set of rules. This is the communications rules. And these rules are a different set of game rules that are also referenced by TOS 1.4. And I specifically want to call out point number 11. So 11 is denunciation of staff members or the game. So not something, denunciation of staff members isn't something that you would immediately think is related to Goldmark usage, but it's tied in here at the end. Posts which slander the support staff or the game itself, or posts which are likely to deter new players from chatting, are not welcome. Also, the denunciation of features of the game, especially of Goldmarks and their users, is strictly prohibited. So I don't know German law. I will point out as something that I find a little bit comedic. Slander is not possible by United States law. Slander is not possible on the game because slander has to be spoken. Libel is what the term that they are looking for. I find that funny, but it doesn't pertain to this particular video, because we're specifically looking at the second sentence. Also, the denunciation of features of the game, especially of Goldmarks and their users, is strictly prohibited. So what they are saying is, you can't say, oh, I hate I hate the way that factories are limited to day 8. It stinks that they are limited to day 8. We should be able to build them on day 1. This game sucks. That is not allowed in the newspaper. Additionally, Goldmarks are stupid. Nobody should ever use them. Anybody who uses them are stupid. Or this person is such a noob, they used Goldmarks to create a artillery piece. That is not allowed. What this does not cover is talking to Goldmarks at all. And it is a very fine line. But if Goldmarks are even referenced by name, that's fine according to these rules, as long as you are not denouncing their use. So you can say, hey, I goldmarked a harbor because I wanted to focus on economy this game. That is, according to these rules, completely acceptable. Saying, my neighbor goldmarked a harbor, and I'm concerned that they're going to come at me with cruisers. Can you please send help? I don't believe is against the rules of the game, because it is not denouncing the use of Goldmarks. It is stating a fact, and it is calling for aid to your allies. In the same way that you would say, hey, my neighbor just took out a capital with their infantry that they got from the beginning of the game. I think they're coming for me next. Please send help. So that is where the line is. As long as you are not denouncing staff, and as long as you are not denouncing features of the game, specifically Goldmarks, and as long as you are not denouncing users of Goldmarks, you are abiding by the terms of service as written. Now, all of this is really, really confusing. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to send a call out to members of Bytro who have the ability to make updates to the terms of service and to the game rules. It is incredibly confusing for new players. It is incredibly confusing for a growing community to understand 15 different rule sets as they are laid out in different areas. I understand why it's laid out the way that it is laid out. It would be incredibly helpful if there was, and I'm a mobile user, I usually don't jump on the browser. It would be incredibly helpful to have in the more section, have a rules of the game. So you can easily reference, okay, this is where the terms of service is. This is where the game rules are, rules about communication in the newspaper, rules about wolf packing, etc., like regular game rules, and even potentially a subset of rules like an appendix for the game. Hey, this is how much damage cruisers do. It would be incredibly helpful to have something like that can be referenced, and that would help the mod team enforce the rules, because they can easily reference, hey, go here, look where it's going on, instead of blanketly stating that's against TOS. Mod team, It took me way longer to figure out where all of this was at, and way more communication to figure out where this was at, than it should have. It is understandable that you're using shorthand, and I totally get it. I don't think that it's good that you use shorthand. You should say that is against game rules, and reference the game rules instead of saying it's against terms of service, because saying it's against terms of service is, while not completely inaccurate, it's also terrifying and confusing when you go to the terms of service and it's not anywhere in there. Be specific, and if you expect your community to understand and follow the terms of service, you need to understand the terms of service and be helpful. Be a good moderator. Lastly, call to players, because it's not all on Bytro and it's not all on the mod team. I think that we need to change our language a little bit. I think that we need to look at what is profitable, good Goldmark use, what is healthy Goldmark use, and what is intelligent Goldmark use, and make it so where we can call out people for, maybe not call them out, but make it so where we can communicate to each other, hey, this player is a threat because they are using Goldmark in a really smart way, and they seem to be a really good player. Whereas there are other players who are not using it in a smart way, and I've seen this. I saw somebody Goldmark harbors on single tiles, and they were just spending a lot of money. And they were a little bit concerning at first, but as I dealt with them, they were not as concerning. That is different than somebody who is efficiently using Goldmark and is a threat to the map, because it amplifies. Goldmark amplifies your ability to play. And if somebody is a good player, that's a threat to the game. That is a threat to everyone in the game. And calling that out in a way that says, hey, this player is going to be good in the long game because they are efficiently using their resources, those resources being both materials and additional resources, specifically Goldmark. That's something that is going to be helpful for the community, but we need to figure out how to change our terminology. And we need to figure out how to call things out without denouncing, because we want people to use Goldmark, because we want the game to continue. That is where I'm going to leave it. I welcome feedback. This is going to be likely an ongoing conversation, as it has been a conversation that I was unaware of for a long time. It's been an ongoing conversation. But we need to work together until such a time that we cannot work together. One additional note for the mod team that I meant to go over, but I didn't. In a recent game that I was in, Goldmark was used by a moderator, and individuals who called it out, whether or not they denounced is not up for, I'm not debating whether or not they were denounced. But individuals that called it out were subject to pretty immediate and pretty severe penalties. This did not look like moderators fulfilling their job in making sure that the rules of the game were followed. That is absolutely what was intended. However, what came across was this individual wanted to do this, and anyone who called it out in any meaningful way was reprimanded, not because they were disobeying the game rules, but because they were enemies of the mod. I would highly recommend an internal rule for moderators to use a limited amount of Goldmark. I don't know what that is, but I would highly recommend the moderation team look at limiting the amount of Goldmark spent, not because they want to make life difficult for their team, not because they don't believe in using Goldmark, But in order to maintain integrity of the team, I think that it is a profitable thing for them to work together to create a scope of what is acceptable. So I apologize for going call to Bytro, call to mod team, call to players, and then back to the mod team. But I think it is incredibly important for the mod team to work together and to present a unified front that is a positive impact on the game, and not just don't do this, don't do this, don't do this. And I think that working together to create internal rules is going to be helpful. I have no idea what the internal rules of the mod team are. I'm not a mod, but I think that would be helpful. I am going to commit to working to create a template of what efficient Goldmark use is, so that we can all abide by the terms of service, so that we can encourage good Goldmark usage instead of just calling out any Goldmark usage whatsoever. And I think that's where the problem is. We as a community need to learn how to call out good resource management, good Goldmark usage, as opposed to just calling everything out, throwing a big blanket, and ending up, in effect, denouncing all Goldmark use. Because I don't think that's what any of us want, because we all want Bytro to do well, because we all want to continue playing the game. That is all that I have to say for now. If you have any questions, please let me know. I am excited to hear comments on this. I would love to see this get to more Bytro officials, so that perhaps we can get this additional button. Soli Deo Gloria, and I will see you next time.